Hi, my name is Christian Lavelle. I'm the president of Metabolic Elite, and we're back with episode 8 of the Elite Minds podcast. And I'm joined today with Mike Potenza, our co-founder of Metabolic Elite, and then also one of our recent coaches that we got connected with, Kinetic Coach Dan. Really excited today to get into Mike's experiences with the products on his team, and then also Dan's experience with the products with himself, and then hopefully, hear soon some of his clientele. So I just want to turn it over to Mike real quick and do a little bit of an intro as well, and then we'll get rolling in this.
Nice. Thanks, Christian. And glad to be on this and meet and, hash it up with Dan here. My experience has been predominantly in professional hockey. This is my 17th year in pro hockey. I spent a little bit of a hiatus in the NBA as a high performance director for the Golden State Warriors. While I was doing that, I had a private consulting business to the Air National Guard, specifically pararescuemen. I began that in 2010. Still involved with it. It's a monster business with massive government contractors. So, little fish like myself get eaten up in that pond really quickly. But the group that I was working with are tier 1 assets for our U.S. military, and they most certainly need performance training, guidance on rehab, and most certainly nutrition. So that's kind of where I've been concentrating all of my energies for the last 20 years now. So
Awesome. Well, before we get into the products, Dan, I'd love to hear, where you started, what your background is, what you're currently doing, and, just get a full picture of, everything that you got going on.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I really always appreciate to have these opportunities and get to connect with people, especially those who are working in realms a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. And certainly always happy to find, efficient, effective, and deployable ways of helping people to get better and live kinetically. So that's my whole thing, man. But I'm a strength conditioning coach. Been such since 2011, which is crazy because that's been the first real career that I started in, and that's what I set out to do. Basically from the time I was a high school athlete, I had the opportunity to train in high school under a guy named Pete Bomarito. As an athlete, just learning from Pete, and that really turned me on to becoming a strength conditioning coach. And but I didn't know what that actually meant at the time, obviously being an 17, 18-year-old kid. So went down the route of, traditional schooling, ended up, going to University of Tennessee, starting some exercise sciences there, played a little bit of football, left from there, during the Phil Fulmer years as they transitioned over to a different coach. And, ended up coming home and deciding, look, I just want to go the work route, make some money, do my thing. But that didn't work out too well because I decided to go into the Marines in a pretty quick spell of rash decision making as a young kid. But God help me. He ended up giving me a football scholarship at a Division II school with a buddy of mine, not too far across the mountain from University of Tennessee, a place called Mars Hill College, where they only had athletic training as their one of their education courses and physical education. I knew I didn't want to be a phys ed teacher, but I decided I would try the athletic training route. And as much as I loved all of the science behind it, the rehabilitative mindset behind it, and sort of the innovative ways a lot of these athletic trainers would have to work things due to limited budgets and often being overworked and underfed in many ways. I decided, this athletic training thing, I like the idea of it, but I also don't like seeing athletes, careers ending. That was not fun. Saw a few of those. So that's when I really decided, look, I'm just going to go, Florida Atlantic, go get exercise sciences degree, finish that whole thing off. And that's what I did. So I got my bachelor's in exercise sciences, kinesiology, got the CSCS, did the whole national strength conditioning thing, for the early portions of my career, and worked with a strength conditioning facility called Ultimate Sports Institute down here, which was under some Miami Dolphins, a guy named John Gamble, who was a former strongman and UVA, a strongman champion. I don't want to take away his credentials on that. Guy's a legend. But he was a UVA strength conditioning coach, Miami Dolphins strength conditioning coach. And I got the opportunity right out of the gate to learn from really some of the best in the business at the time. and guys who were right up there at the top of the cutting edge. But, about 5 years into my career there, I realized there was a niche that no one was really touching, and it was the specialized equipment side of things and education side of things. There were maybe a handful of coaches who were using stuff like YouTube, and Instagram was just kind of getting rolling about 2015, 2016 with content platforms that were focused on education. And I just saw a need for it. So that really was all kicked off by David Weck and by Chris Duffin of Kabuki Strength at the time. And I saw these guys speaking the same language, but doing it from different perspectives. And they were doing it really well. And a lot of really specialized strength conditioning tools and equipment was starting to come out. So I decided that was the route I was going to go and lend my strength conditioning knowledge to innovative, efficient, effective, mobile, and deployable equipment providers who were making really special stuff in the industry. And so when I broke off from the gym that I was working for, I started renting with Dave Rienzi, who was the Rock strength conditioning coach at his place, right around the corner from where I am now. So from about 2017 to late 2019, early 2020, I was there, and that's where I cut my teeth in developing kinetic training into what it is now. And that's a sort of long-winded way of getting to where we are, but that really taught me a lot and introduced me to a lot of special people simply because of who I was around, and taught me a lot about the promotional side of things and how to develop an educational platform that also served as promotional in a high quality way that delivered really high quality content. And so like a lot of the stuff you're seeing that's commonplace in Instagram and YouTube and everything now, that's what I was doing way back then, and that was because of what I was seeing coming from those guys. Like, for instance, a guy named Gunnar Peterson. I don't know if you're familiar with Gunnar, but I got introduced to Gunnar and really wanted to platform a lot of my coaching style around what he was doing because he was working with all these really specialized pieces of equipment. And he categorically had pretty much everything that you could possibly hope for as a strength conditioning coach. I mean, all the toys.
His facility is insane.
Yeah.
His facility is unbelievable.
If you ever get a chance to go see him in Nashville, please do. It is well worth it. And he's just an awesome dude. Always happy to share in high level knowledge, and he's a great guy. So I had the opportunity to experience some of that, but also see what he was doing in the Under Armour ads, and provide really, really high quality training that had a lot of visual grab. But when you saw the piece of equipment that was being used in that ad, you're like, dang, what is that? And what's that all about? So that's what I set out to do. And in that process, I gathered up a lot of equipment partners and people who were doing some really, really special stuff in the equipment design side of things. And some of them aren't with us now, but God love them. I'm definitely a product of the amazing work that they did and the learning that came along with it on my side of things, to just be able to seek out pieces of equipment that force you to think differently about how humans should move and what it is we're capable of. And that's all just from the movement side of things. Learned from a lot of guys who are doing some really cool stuff on the central nervous system management side of things, guys like JL Holdsworth with RPR and Cal Dietz. That's what ultimately introduced me to Cal, and triphasic and everything that he was doing. So that brings it all full circle for you, if you will, because seeing Cal was a part of Metabolic Elite, that was definitely something that immediately stood out to me. I was like, if Cal's involved, I know these guys are doing something real. And so that led us to about.
You're not the first person to say that.
What's that?
You're not the first person to say that. We've had you're like, oh, Cal, yep, let's go. And I'm like, yes. We love Cal for that.
He's put some work into testing it. He's definitely put it through its proving grounds, and obviously the other guys that are around him are proof of that. So, the whole equipment thing really just served to ultimately help me survive COVID and my clients survive COVID. We were training in this beautiful facility. It was a really amazing time there, but I was looking for other facilities. I was looking for storefronts, for warehouses, whatever I could find that would work well. But a client of mine actually approached me about coming out to a farm that was right around the corner to start teaching goat yoga, which was definitely not going to be my cup of tea. But I said, look, I can help you develop it. We can get some trainers. I can coach them on what to do. I've got this equipment that I'm not using at the point. At that time, I had a trailer called the Trailer Fit that was by a company, mobile fitness equipment, who's now Beaver Fit. If you're in the military space, you'll know who they are. So Beaver Fit and mobile fitness equipment were competing with each other for military contracts and things like that. So I had one of these trailers from a trade show we had done, and I had it all packed up and ready to go. So when COVID started to become sort of a whispering of fear out in the Far East, we weren't really worried about it, So we're like, all right, we'll come up with this farm fitness idea. We talked to the farmer. He liked the idea, but this farmland was completely empty. This is 15 and a half acres, right smack dab in the middle of, three of the most affluent cities in South Florida. And it's prime real estate. Let me tell you, the houses that are around this thing are no joke. And, but it was like this little, hidden farm jewel out in the middle of the Everglades in South Florida. And, a few people were coming out here at the time. So I came and talked to them. And we were going to build, what you see now, which is the pavilion and all that stuff. But that was a sort of faraway thought at the time. 2 weeks later, March 17th, 2020, Fitness Armageddon hit South Florida, and they literally kicked us out of the gym. So he said, look, guys, this is what's going on. 12 o'clock, you guys got to all be out. That was a Wednesday. And by 4 p.m. that day, we were out here training on the farm. And I have the videos to prove it. So, because I knew it was coming. And the truth of the matter is, it was having that equipment and having that mindset for adaptability and the anti-fragile mindset to be able to move forward and keep going and keep everybody on track. I mean, I saw the writing that was on the wall, and I knew that people were going to need more than anything just a great positive anchor point to manage their stress with. And that's exactly what happened. So, coming out here, we had nothing. We had the trailers and some tree cover to help us with the shade from time to time. But really, for the better part of March to October, we didn't have this pavilion. So we were just making it, man. And that's how I started calling this place sort of the dojo, because at one point we had convention tents that we had lashed together to keep all the rain off of everything, but we developed this pool of water that would build up. So we lashed together a bunch of picnic table tops, and it literally was like a martial arts dojo floor. And so that's why I started calling it that. But once he actually built the pavilion, I customized it, and I got it set up, and through that whole process, all it was proof of concept for the idea I had had since 2017, which was, if you have all these specialized pieces of equipment, you need to have education. It needs to be, media driven, social media driven, evergreen content that you can continue using to sell your products, but also educate on your products, because most strength conditioning coaches don't really want to take on a new piece of equipment or a new methodology unless they see other coaches doing it and they have at least some level of education behind that piece of equipment to talk about it comfortably, learn about it, and apply it. So that's what we did all throughout COVID, man. It was creating education courses, creating promotional content to help get those courses and those pieces of equipment out there, and really, bringing us to this point. That's what I've been doing, and I can categorically say I've found some of the most interesting, innovative, efficient, and effective equipment that you can find in the training space, and stuff that's just near and dear to my heart for the stories that are behind it. But that's all really from the movement side of things, and the reason that we're even having these conversations really comes down to, like, man, we got through it. I've been through a lot of stress personally this entire time. I got a family of my own. I've been training clients hard and heavy for a long time now, coming up on 15 years. And, I'm seeing in myself more and more of a need to take care of my internal health. I've always known, obviously, that nutrition and supplementation should be a part of it. We're all familiar with with what makes sense for athletes and for humans as a whole. And if you do that the right way, you can really take yourself a long way. But I'm all about finding the next best thing, or provably what can move the needle forward in the human genome, in the human design, and take us to another level. What's going to be the next marginal gain that can make things more efficient, more effective for the human body to recover from all of the stress that we induce, all the inflammation that it causes, in our training. And we know that's important, but who's really been doing anything special in that department up until now? So,
I think
when I
I
started
think
reading
that's
up
really where we
on when I started
I think
reading up
that's
on
right
what
where
you
we
guys have been doing.
really hit it off, was on your desire to want to move the needle and kind of push that boundary of just performance in general. I think that's what, on our initial call, we were like, okay, this is going to align really well with each other's missions and everything. So that didn't mean to cut you off, but well, let's keep going.
No, yeah. That's
Yeah.
the beauty of these conversations, man. Is so many of these situations have been so serendipitous for me. I don't know where you stand on the whole the spirituality side of things, but man, like, it's so much divine intervention to me. It's not even funny. Like, every situation that I've had out here on the farm, I was literally having a conversation with one of my clients who's a sports agent, but he's a 58-year-old guy. He tears it up in the gym all week. He's always got something going on. He's always dinged up. If you're been an athlete any kind of time, any amount of time, you know what that feels like. And and as you get older, it certainly doesn't get any easier. So we were having that conversation, and he was just bringing up the fact that a dietitian I've known for years, and we hadn't had that conversation about her, had just recommended to him, hey, have you considered BPC 157? So we had just been speaking about that, and then you guys had reached out on social media like 2 or 3 days later. I was like, Gavin, you're not gonna believe this.
Great timing, right? Great timing.
So,
That's crazy.
And to me, in my mind, I love the nutrition side of things, but as a strength conditioning coach, I do try to delegate that to dietitians, to people who have the scruples to tell people what to eat, when to eat it. That's a prescription in the end, So I don't really go that route. When it comes to that route, I want to be able to recommend high quality supplementation, high quality foods, or someone who can specifically tell you, hey, this is the testing we've done. This is what we know your body needs, or we think your body needs, and we can help you navigate what that looks like. I don't go that route with my clients, and I let someone else of a better level of education in that world do it. So when I saw you guys and what it is Metabolic was doing, I knew that this was something I had to get involved with, and more than anything for me, an opportunity to learn more about it, because I tend to stay hands off with a lot of that. So that's how we got here, man. And personally, for me, trying the products came at a great time, because I've been training hard, really, really hard for the last year, getting back into my own training and really focusing on myself, and had some, bumps and bruises and mama kiss it betters along the way that needed addressing inflammation wise and pain management wise. So starting up on the products and knowing what a lot of those products are already about from just a general concept, it's clear that these products have been helpful in getting me to where I need to go, and managing some of the issues I've caused myself in pushing my limits in my training. I think that's a really important thing for people to understand, is that training is all breakdown in the end, and you can train the right way as much as you want, but in the end, it's breaking your body down. And if you can't get it to recover and optimize your body's inner chemistry and inner efficiency, then you're going to have a hard time recovering, especially if you're getting older. And 36 isn't old, but it's not young. So,
I know we came, like, it was really good timing, because you've set some pretty amazing goals for yourself. I don't know if you want to get into them or not, but
yeah.
we were talking to each other, and you're like, this is like really good timing, because I'll be able to test and get some data on the things, because hey, I'm pushing towards these, some really amazing goals that you have for yourself. Like you said, is really serendipitous of the timing on everything, getting connected. And that I think going into some of your goals, and right now it would be a good thing, like, to kind of give people an understanding of how these have been aiding you in the process of getting to those goals.
Yeah. So, but being that I work with certain types of products, some of those are going to require a little bit more validation, peer review, that type of stuff. So
Yep.
we took a product called the Advanced Muscle Mechanics Launchpad for bench press training. And if you're in the functional training world, that's kind of like a dirty word. Ooh, we don't use bench press as it's not functional, right? But we love bench pressing. Right. If you've been in the gym long enough, you want to do some bench pressing, and if you used to be able to bench press pretty well, you'd like to be able to bench press a little bit better. So we set the goal of being able to take a protocol that I put together for the launch pad, and I was going to use that personally myself as a personal study for that protocol, part of that protocol to validate the claims that we were making on it, and put myself through a whole hell of a lot of bench press training in the last year and a half. And really, I've had the device for about 2 years, but, we connected with a guy named Dr. Dolezal out at UC Berkeley, who's running a lab there and is actually running these tests. So we put the protocol together, we started working on it, and, my goal was to be able to beat my lifetime bench press max of 325, even though I did that when I was 19. So, and beyond that point of doing that in college, I really didn't care about it, knowing that, my squat, my deadlift, my power cleans and, clean and jerk and stuff were going to be the things that I focused on as a football player. So, the bench press thing was just like an afterthought that came from the training we were doing. So I set that goal, we set up the protocol and started putting it to work. And about early November of last year, I was able to finally cross that threshold and get that 330 off the chest. So that was a great goal to meet, but it does have its wear and tear. So it was really after that point that I decided, look, I'm going to back off this. I'm not even going to keep going that heavy. I was just working 325 one day, but decided to do a little bit of ego lifting and hit it for 75 reps in that session. So over the course of that session, I hit it for 75 reps, but it did tighten up my neck to a point where I compressed a nerve pretty heavily. And, I've had issues like this before, football neck, my neck is pretty much straight up and down like that. So I've had a nerve compression on my right side before. This is the first time it had ever happened on my left. And, within pretty much a few hours to days, it locked up my whole left shoulder. This was only 3.5 weeks ago now. And I've had my metabolic products, up to this point. And, the last time this happened, it took about the better part of 9 months to really come back from that. And I mean, it was in rough shape. I mean, I'm talking to the point where the spasms were so bad, I'd be standing there training clients and it was just like, oh my God, I couldn't even chain together 3 push-ups at one point. And, it was really that bad. And I certainly stepped away from bench pressing for a while. So to come back from that injury all those years ago, and be able to actually hit that 330 bench and then have it happen again. It was on the flat bench, by the way. It wasn't on the launch pad. But to have that happen and have the knowledge now and the skill set and the necessary tools to come back from it as quickly as I already have, I'm at full range of motion again. I'm at full, pretty much pain-free within 3.5 weeks rather than 9 months at 36 years old. Tells me that something has been very different up to this point. And yes, my training has improved. I'm a smarter, more sensible coach now in a lot of ways. But one of the most important things to me has been how my nutrition has improved. And we all know how important it is to be able to recover tissue quality and get the tissues back up and running in a biochemical sense more than even just a mechanical sense, right? When you have something like a nerve compression, that's driving a lot of biochemical processes that, your body, no system in the body, gets injured alone and no system in the body recovers alone. There's a great guy named Dr. Perry Nicholson who talks a lot about that type of stuff. But a mechanical injury is just as much chemical as it is mechanical. And to me, a huge part of recovering from that injury was having the metabolic products as part of my recovery protocol and getting back up and running. I mean, lickety split. I'm already bench pressing again, and I'm not going to stop, by the way.
That's great. Well, I mean, you just hit something that me and Mike talk about, and it's kind of like the ethos of Metabolic Elite is, it's the intersection of biomechanics and biochemistry is where everything really interplays with each other. And I was going to push a couple questions to Mike is because we always like inflammation from training is essentially good, but like extensive inflammation is where things start to get,
Not going
a
away.
little wonky. Like you want to be able to have that inflammation for a short amount of period and recover from it. And Mike, I think that's something where we can get into a little bit of what you have been dealing with on the hockey side of things, because in season, preseason training, it's all about, player management and managing that inflammation using these tools like the TetraCure mainly for the athletes, and other, like the Enduro and other products that help with stress response and things like that. So I wanted to, push it to you, Mike, and go into like how you manage, like you were just talking about that inflammation side of things, because essentially it is good, but there's also that inverse side of things with it as well.
Yeah,
If I may, I was taking the Enduro when I hit that 75 reps of 225, by the way, for that workout. So just saying.
It works on bench
Let's
press.
go.
We gotta put that in the
Note.
Yeah, we'll put that on the website. Well, I think it's twofold for me. It's the daily grind of what our players go through, and again, whether it be the military group I've worked with, or the NHL team, we're dealing with players who are 18 to late 30s. The military group is like 20 to 55. So there's a wide span of ages, and then there's a lot of baggage that comes along with it, and most certainly a lot of fatigue and injury history. But for the healthy guys during the year, the craze has always been curcumin and whatever product is out there, and the daily dose of now it becomes in your foundational packet or foundational vitamin packet that you're taking on the daily. Nutritionists are pushing it. It's a great idea, but how absorbable is it, right? And I think that's where we separate ourselves from everybody else. So the TetraCure on daily is important to us for inflammation management. Christian absolutely hit the nail on the head. That's part of the process. We don't want to blunt anything that our body can do on its own. We only want to assist it in ways, whether it be modalities for inflammation, whether it be the nutritional side with our TetraCure. The delivery system is great. I will say from a practical standpoint, like our guys get pill fatigue, and I've seen it in multiple different sports. I've seen it with other private clients. They just don't want to take a lot of pills. And I get it. Like with present company here, our stack is probably a lot of pills, on the daily, and we don't mind it, because we live in this world, but the athletes always don't want to. So the chewable form has become a game changer for us, and easily, acceptable for the athletes, both male and female, the ones I've worked with. I will say on the injury side, we double down on the curcumin from any inflammatory processes that that the guys are going through, the injured athletes are going through, short term or long term. It doesn't really matter.
So Mike, if I may interject, you're saying double the dose?
Yeah, I've done 2 TetraCures in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. In chewable.
Okay, well, I'm going to take that recommendation and put it to work, baby.
It's an immediate, and that I'm stealing that and repurposing it from Jim. So but it's been
if Jim said it, I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we're all here. So, but
oh man.
But so, and then the other side of it, like we've seen amazing results from the Synapsin, especially the Pro, for our guys focused during games, but also anytime we have a skill related point of practice to gain skill acquisition in a particular movement, shot attempt, or just shooting, or face-offs, even that high amount of skill that's a detail of the game that you do want to come out on top with. The guys are completely in on its results from the Synapsin Pro. And then our other piece, like Christian said, the Enduro has just helped as an adaptogen effect, and the research on rhodiola to help our guys not only cardiovascularly but from a recovery standpoint. We've seen some great results in game and in practice from that. Long term, in terms of the adaptogen effect, still trying to figure out how to measure it with guys. That goes above and beyond kind of the subjective questionnaire, which is critical. I mean, we have all these things we can test, but you do need to get, the athlete's perspective and how they actually feel.
Hey,
You
look,
may not see
in
the
the end,
numbers.
performance don't lie, man.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that the enduro is a really interesting one because of from the study that they did on that raw material, the Landkind pure salidroside, which is a 98% extract from rhodiola. So it's I like to say it's like a super adaptogen. The effects on the aerobic capacity and the muscle tissue oxygenation is really great for the acute benefits of it for athletes to be able to utilize more oxygen and also get ready for maybe going to altitude and things like that, and being able to really like have a good protocol around how to use the enduro is key. And Cal made an amazing article on our website that he made a protocol on kind of when to cycle it, because you still want the body to adapt. Like Mike was saying, we don't want to blunt our body's ability to adapt normally. So knowing how to cycle that enduro in the different phases of training is really important, because you want to go on it for a 4 to 6 week block and then come off of it for a 4 to 6 week block. That way you're still getting that natural adaptation. And then once you're getting close to competition again, then you want to start implementing it back into the protocol. And then, like Mike said, we're still seeing how the long-term effect of the enduro is, because the study was really remarkable, and I can link that, onto this YouTube, so people can read it, because it really is a remarkable study that they did. But we're still trying to see, like Mike said, that long-term kind of, stress response, adaptogenic effect from the salidroside as well, which I think is going to be really important to see how, what is it looking like for guys in the off season, after they're done, how is their response to it differently in the off season versus in season, when in season they're probably under, more stress. There's a lot more vectors on their body, coming from all things. Guys have families, they have the outside pressure of things with, just playing and everything like that. And then in the off season, when that kind of pulls back, how is their body able to respond to these products as well? And, I think that
there are pain points for any athlete during a season. Then we all know the dog days. We all know when, for hockey and basketball, it's going to be that late January through February. And then you see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. That's March and the playoffs. And then all of a sudden it looks bright, but then it gets dim again, because you still got to go through March. And March traditionally in pro sports, and specifically in basketball and hockey, which I've kind of lived in, March sucks. March is 16 to 17 games that's more than every other day technically, but that's a grind, and at the latest part of the season. So even people who love to train, people who are dedicated to their training cycle, whether or not they're an athlete or not, every day, people who are committed to it, they know their pain points of their training blocks, and enduro can be a really good analysis for them too, to all right, if I do this training block, I know I'm going to feel this way. It's going to be really hard. How can I push through that? And that's the kind of analysis we have to do with my staff at the end of the year to see in the players.
Yeah,
how did you feel?
If I can step in on that point there,
Yeah.
one of the key things with my current training block that I'd been working through was focusing more on building size. And early last year, I started cutting down. I went from 205 to about 180, cut down big time, got really lean as I was still gaining strength, and going into this, this phase when I started, on the metabolic products and trying to gain weight, getting back up to about 210. So I'm about 200 pounds right now, and as part of this this size building block, just to maintain some of my anaerobic threshold, I'll basically do the ski erg for 1 minute at a time after each of my circuits. And when I was at my leanest was really when I was at my, what I feel is my best cardiovascular capabilities. I was crushing that thing at, probably about 330, 340 meters in a minute, but I mean, eyes popping out of my head, and teeth buzzing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And pretty easily within, I'd say this was probably about 4 weeks into taking the metabolic products, and always on those days I would take the Enduro as part of the protocol. On the last set, when I finally broke my record, which was previously 352 meters when I was leaner. This was 20 pounds lighter. Pretty easily, I'd say with about 3/4 of the effort, was able to crack 362 on that thing.
Wow.
And that was toward the end of a workout.
Wow.
And you know, within a few weeks of the doing the 225 at 75 rep stuff. So clearly, there's been an impact to me on my overall level of endurance when I'm really not even doing endurance work per se at this stage of the game. Really just trying to gain size and build some extra mass. Staying away from cardio, in fact. So to me, the anaerobic threshold that you're getting from that product, that Enduro product, is probably going to have some pretty strong implications once we start putting it through some serious testing.
Agreed.
I'm excited to see how you use it in your clientele now that you've had your personal experience with the products, and kind of see, you know, I'm really excited to continue to talk with you because of, you know, all of our, you know, how much we value the data. And, you know, it's great because the technology is amazing. We have, you know, a lot of the research behind, you know, the LipoTab technology, and, you know, we have all of that. But like getting the anecdotal to me is still just as important as looking at, you know, the research behind our ingredients and, you know, how effective the liposomal tablet is and all. That's all great. But how it impacts people on a daily basis, and how what the benefits that you're getting with your clientele are like, oh my gosh, you know, this is great, all that, this, that, and the other, you know, I think is going to be really important as we continue to need to educate people on, hey, this is how it's going to impact you on a daily basis. And it's been interesting because we've seen, you know, amazing impact on those elite athletes and military. We've seen some amazing impact on the people that are kind of wanting to really push and optimize their performance. But on the flip side of things, we're also getting the same results in just, you know, everyday people, like with a lot of our wholesale accounts with our MDs and DOs and MPs and all these other people that are using it in the clinical side. Also at my dad's clinic, you know, we're using these products, and everybody from the most elite athlete all the way to, you know, somebody that just, you know, wants to get back, getting in the gym, or, you know, like, oh, my focus isn't really there, you know, but I also don't want to take a ton of caffeine, you know, because don't want to do the over caffeine consumption. And then that we're like, okay, perfect. You know, this is a great opportunity for synapsin to come in, because a lot of people struggle with the neuroinflammation, and, you know, synapsin's really great.
That was something big that I wanted to ask you guys about, is the synapsin.
Yeah.
Because what I've noticed is on the days that I'm taking it, you know, I have no problem caffeinating. I'm Cuban, so we like coffee, and I lift a lot, so I like taking my pre-workout, and that's fine. But particularly on the days when I've taken the synapsin, I have noticed far less of a need and even desire to even bother having that, you know, that afternoon coffee that I'm going to have.
Yep.
And it's on no shortage of caffeine. I promise you that. It's a triple double. So, but on the days that I'm taking the synapsin, I don't really feel the need for it. And that's what I was wondering about is what is it you guys are seeing on the research side of things? But then the other thing I wanted to ask was Mike, about your military operators and what they tend to see, particularly from the rapid skill acquisition and target acquisition side of things on their shoot house work, and you know, what it is they're doing from a reaction time perspective. If you guys have done any testing on that, because I do a lot of dry fire work and other CQC type stuff integrated into my training for simulated stress with my military and law enforcement guys. And if there's going to be a huge impact on their ability to acquire a target and differentiate a target, then, man, I got to get everybody on that synapsin stuff real quick.
I can take the first one, Mike, on like the caffeine sort of thing. So we actually have quite a few people that have cut their caffeine consumption quite a bit when using the synapsin, because people love it pre-training because it just dials them in. They're more present in what they're doing. There's no stimulatory effect of the synapsin whatsoever. But what I like to say is it just makes you more present in what the current task is, and you're more focused on what you're doing, and your nervous system's able to respond quicker, and you're more just in. Like a lot of our grapplers are like, oh, I can get to my flow state, but also be listening to what my coach is telling me and comprehending it. So
Yeah.
that's a big part of it. And then I'll touch on the second one, then Mike, I'll let you get into it.
Yeah.
We haven't like done any official studies on like skill acquisition and shooting, but we do have a bunch of operators and a lot of people that are in the shooting space where their scores are going up, they're able to acquire targets quicker. We have actually a competitive, I think, pistol shooter that my dad was working with, and he was really struggling, and then we implemented the Synapse, and obviously there's other interventions as well. It's not all,
Right. You put the
it's
work
just
in.
it's just a tool in the toolbox. But we do see his scores were going up. He started placing again. We have motorcycle riders that are also being able to do simulator at a lot higher speed. So instead of 4x, we have guys that are at like 10x race speed. Like also boxers that like their punch accuracy is a lot better. So
you
across
doing the visual cortexes and how that's affecting the optic nerve.
Yeah, and then I think that's a really interesting piece to it, but that's just some of the, what we've seen across the board. I know we're, getting a lot deeper into the military now, and we'll be able to do more things like that, but up to this point, we have seen a lot of benefit on the shooting side of things. And then Mike, I'll let you kind of get into it because I know this is more up your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I'm. With my group, and I'll speak for Cal too, subjectively as to what we've seen, because he's dealing with a lot of tier 1 asset guys that are within the state of Minnesota, or live there and train with him, and have taken triphasic military programming from him. So target acquisition and focus while in the moment of shooting and getting that type of training in has subjectively gone through the roof for guys, and I've probably talked to about a handful of them, and then not a huge subset, but has been shown to be very effective. Cal's even seen it with more of a sniper group that he was working with closely, and it's interesting because target acquisition, number of repetitions, quality of repetitions, Cal's reporting, and when we're talking, these guys have seen it gone up, and now it's become, like it's a daily for them. You know what I mean? So we do have to get into a little bit more of the hardcore data of it, but yeah, most certainly, it's there. It definitely is there.
Yeah, 100% it's there. That's in the works. Like that's one of our biggest things I think for year 2 in the company is starting to put together a lot more of these, internal studies and start collect. Like we have a couple like Mike has done an amazing job of collecting data in this year 1 of using the Metabolic Elite products, and Cal's really done a lot of amazing tests as well on, some of his, like Mike was saying with his athletes and also his military guys, just how many repetitions are they able to get in a quality manner. And, I think that's a big push for us this second year is, hey, we need to start, getting more data and publishing some things and publishing results on, what people are seeing. But like I said, the anecdotal to me is just as important as the stuff, but those studies prove what the anecdotal evidence is showing, so.
Oh yeah, it won't be something that you can deny if you can see it in the blood work and see it in the performance, and it's all corresponding. I mean,
Yep.
Look, to me, as long as an athlete is performing better and feels they're performing better, and that's happening more frequently, they're seeing success early and often, then keep them right there.
Yeah. Well,
the program's working.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the blood work side of things, and that's my dad's wheelhouse. He developed Metabolic Code, which is the algorithm that looks at, lab values and puts them through an Bayesian modeling algorithm and goes through and does all these amazing things. And he's 40 years of experience, tens of thousands of patients, through this thing. And Mike's running Metabolic Code at the San Jose Sharks, and he's able to see the change in the biomarkers from preseason, in season, and postseason, which I think he's coming up to his postseason draw here soon. But like we are seeing the changes in the biomarkers in the blood, the cellular level, through the blood work that my dad's doing in his clinic with his various athletes and military individuals and just his clients in general. So we are seeing that on the blood work side of things. We just aren't publishing on it yet. So yeah.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So I did want to, I went to my first Volunteers game this past year. I went to the Alabama-Tennessee game, and you said you were a Vol for a little bit, and that was like one of my best. That was I played college football. I played at Utah State, got to play at LSU, played at Texas Tech, but oh my gosh, man. Rocky Top is another animal. That was like one of the best experiences ever. Like as a fan, got to see the band come in and do the whole thing. That was an amazing time.
You think some of these stadiums are loud when you're at the bottom of that stadium and you got 100,000 screaming down at you and it's just roaring down over the top. You can't hear the guy right next to you, much less yourself speak. So.
And it was the Alabama game, so they beat them at home this past year. We got to rush the field and do the whole cigar thing with the tradition on the it was a cool time. I think we did a really great job of talking about the products. I did have one question that popped into my head for you, Dan. Is right now, what is your favorite piece of equipment that you have that you're currently utilizing? That's a hard question.
That's so hard.
Hard question because I know that's kind of your wheelhouse. You're like, I just love really cool equipment. But is there something that you're really excited about that you're either experimenting with or and I'll go one that you're excited about that you're experimenting with, and then what's your tried and true that you'd never stray away from?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, man. Like I said, I got plenty of them, but this guy right here is that's the Advanced Muscle Mechanics launch pad. There, got that chamfered edge for letting the shoulder blades to move the way that they're designed to. We've known for a long time that the bench press has some ramifications on the shoulder complex, especially the straight bar bench. But keeping that kinematic sequence up and running is really big. And then this was a landmine bar that we designed by a buddy of mine, Jay at Exponent Edge, with a removable internal handle. So this is his fixed handle, but he also has a pivoting one, and that was something that we designed about 2 years ago and we came up with, and Jay executed it beautifully. And, it just makes it so that you can really work with the landmine movements. I don't know if you're familiar with Landmine University and all of the split snatch and all the really explosive work, but that's number one, that's really stressful on the forearm and the hand if you're trying to grip that 2-inch end of the barbell. So we narrowed that down, but then we also took some of that force out of the forearm and the wrist and elbow by having that handle to pivot and rotate. And then another one is this body core sled here. It's, something that you switch on and off. You got your levels 1, 2, and 3, and then a change of direction mode where it's actually randomly shifting your direction as you're pushing it. So it's completely magnetic resistance. You don't actually need the weight on there other than to weigh the damn thing down. And it does force you to completely reactively work against the sled as you're pushing it. So, look, tried and true. We're always going to be squatting, deadlifting, bench pressing, doing all that stuff, which is why I do everything I can to mitigate the cost of those really linear, bilateral movements and make them as efficient and functional as possible. But functionality wise, pushing and pulling that sled, I'm doing that pretty much every session to maintain some of my my functionality in my lower half and some of that metabolic and anaerobic threshold. So if I'm doing anything every session, it's going to be pushing and pulling that sled. And then, all these other fun tools, man, it's so cool to be able to work with all these people and put all this stuff to the test and include it in the training, as a really cohesive program that fits perfectly for anybody and everybody. That's what I set out to do, man. It was for me, it was about solving problems for people and finding other people who want to do the same. And that's what a lot of these guys do. And it's just a tremendous piece of the puzzle to be able to provide a tool that solves a problem for someone in an impactful way. And they can connect with their body in a more impactful way, but they can connect with their training in a way that makes them want to train more, and that's such a huge part of it to me.
I love that. I think that's the connection piece, right? Above that keeps them coming back and keeps them committed. You know what I mean? Love it.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see someone have that aha moment simply because the tool is designed better. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Kabuki, but the transformer bar and what that thing was able to do. We all complain that the straight bar has issues, but you can't do just safety squats all the time. Being able to pivot that sleeve forward and shift it up and down and change the force vectors of it was massive. And now everybody can squat in the way that's best for them, or they can lunge in the way that's best for them and have the body positioning necessary to do it. And that's just a design issue, and that's what really. It was stuff like that really excited me about the equipment space and the education space that comes with it early on. And now, I mean, I've been doing this for years, and it's validated itself time and time again, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's transformer bar is amazing. I love the hinge.
Chris Duffin is the man. If you want to talk to him, you should get him on board too.
Definitely. I think he would be a good person to get involved. I think he aligns really well with a lot. Obviously, him and Cal know each other, I'm pretty sure. He aligns really well with what we're doing. I think that he'd be an amazing guest to have.
I'm gonna text Chris right after this for you.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Well, I think we're coming up on time. Dan, this was a great conversation. I'm really glad you were able to get on and do a podcast with Mike and I. I'm really looking forward to continuing this relationship and seeing where everything goes with the products, and just continuing to collect data and see how things are impacting people. And like I said, thanks for coming on here. Really appreciate your time.
Oh man, thank you guys so much. It was great to actually finally meet you, Mike, and I look forward to picking your brain on a lot of what you guys are working on and learning much more about what Metabolic Elite has to offer. Obviously, the products have done me really well in a relatively short period of time, and that's what it's all about to me, is coming up with efficient, effective ways to move the needle forward. So if that's what we're going to do with Metabolic Elite, I'm on board, man.
Awesome.
I appreciate your time.
All right.
This is the first of many conversations we're going to have, and love your passion, love your ingenuity, and what you're doing over there, and love your space too. So I'm jealous of the
anytime
the
you
spot's
want.
Cool.
Me dojo es su dojo.
Yeah,
sweet.
Perfect.
Sweet. Looks like we got to take a trip to South Florida.
I know you want to get out of that California weather sometimes.
Yeah. I need to see some real mosquitoes.
Yeah, right. Oh, out here they'll pick you up and carry you away. They're like pterodactyls.
Yeah, no, they got saddles.
All right. Well, just want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Elite Minds podcast. Just wrapped up episode 8 with Kinetic Coach Dan. Make sure you give him a follow at Live Kinetically on Instagram. Also, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the YouTube, and then also follow us at Metabolic_Elite on Instagram as well. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.